Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of One Football Debates, where we tackle the biggest question in football. Here's the scores on the doors. It's 4-3. Statman Dave has taken the lead. After being 3-0 down, Stephen Howson so generously offered him 3 points, which kind of turned out to be a mistake as he's now losing. But today's his chance to level the scores. Our question for today is, who has been the biggest flop in the Premiership this season? Stephen Howson, go ahead.
I think you've got to look at where you're a flop based on your expectation level. And I think Morata comes in with a massive expectation level. So for me, he's not lived up anywhere near what he should have done. It's got to be Morata.
And Statman Dave, who is your pick?
Well, apart from Stephen Howson, of course, being a massive flop, losing a 3-0 lead, it's going to be Renato Sanchez.
Shots fired. Howson, I can see you're literally raring to go, so you can go next to put forward your argument.
Right. Let's get it right. He beat me saying that Liverpool was going to win the Champions League over Real Madrid. For starters, that's bad.
Better argument, though. Better argument, Stephen.
Anyway, so Morata arrived in England with a reputation of being a goal machine. Someone who was scoring goals at 104 goals per minute, or minutes per goal. Someone that had a better goals to minute ratio than Cristiano Ronaldo. He had the pedigree of playing at Juventus, the pedigree of being at Real Madrid. This was a guy that was going to take Chelsea to be back-to-back English champions, take over from where Diego Costa left off. He's playing in front of and alongside the likes of Eden Hazard, Cesc Fabregas, Willian. He's playing at a top side. He's a top footballer, supposedly at the top of his game, the peak of his game that's coming in. The expectation was there for him to take off and deliver and to be scoring the amount of goals that someone say like Lukaku has gone on to score, but he's nowhere near that. Morata.
And Statman, your player and why he's the biggest flop?
When we're talking about expectation, we've got to talk about someone that was European golden boy, the best young player in Europe, went to Bayern Munich, flopped a little bit there, but then the big flop was, of course, at Swansea City. It was almost a belly flop off a diving board. You expect this guy to turn up to the Premier League. He's perfect for it. He can tackle, he can do everything, but he's been an absolute flop and can't even get into a team that's currently sitting 17th in the Premier League and is battling for relegation. That's what you're talking about expectations. That's what you're talking about under-delivery, and that is Renato Sanchez.
So in terms of your player, Howson, why is he more of a flop than Renato Sanchez?
It's easy to say why he's more of a flop than Renato Sanchez because, as Dave said, he was a guy that was already flopping at Bayern Munich. He only started 6 league games for Bayern Munich, and anybody who's watched those games knows that he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it in a team that absolutely smashes the league that it's in. It was all set up for him to go and be successful at Bayern Munich, and he couldn't do it. Now, you've got to ask yourself, why is a player that was valued at 80 million euros at Bayern Munich when he arrived there allowed to go to Swansea in the first place? So Morata simply had a higher expectation level. He was coming in thinking that he was going to do this, that, and the other. People was talking about this goal-to-minute ratio, better than Cristiano Ronaldo's. Morata came with everything that could have wanted in football. There was a big tug-of-war about which club he was going to go to. It wasn't the case with Renato Sanchez. You've got to say, Morata brought the expectation and then failed to live up to it. He's not even lived up to the mark set by Diego Costa, who scored 22 goals for this Chelsea side when they won the league the previous season, and he's not even known as a goal scorer. Morata is meant to be a Harry Kane-style goal machine. He's nothing like it. He is the biggest flop in the Premier League this season.
And then to you, Statman Dave, why is Renato Sanchez actually a bigger flop than Morata?
I think if you look at Morata and you look at him at Real Madrid, at Juventus, he was never first choice. So the level of expectation for Morata should have been a lot lower. He's never played over 2,000 minutes in his career in a single season. He's done that this season at Chelsea. He scored, 11 goals in the league. He's been directly involved in the same amount of goals in all competitions as Alexis Sanchez, as Andre Lacazette. And that's the thing, Morata's come into a different league and he's adapting to it okay. He's scoring goals. He's doing what he's doing. You've got to take Chelsea as an example. From Premier League champions to 5th position, they've created fewer chances this season than last season. So Morata's getting less opportunities on goal. I don't think he's as big a flop as he is. You take the game against Manchester United, scored the winner, a fantastic goal. And it's one of these things where I think he's done okay. Comparison to Renato Sanchez, the fella's playing central midfield. He's only managed 704 minutes this season because he's just not made the starting 11. 0 goals, 0 assists. Only 84% of his passes have completed. And he's only won 12 tackles in the whole season. 12 tackles for a central midfielder is absolutely pathetic. And that is why he's such a big flop at the in the Premier League, it's mental. I think if you're taking Bakayoko as well, I'd say Bakayoko is a bigger flop than Morata at Chelsea. Simple as that. I don't think Morata's been that bad.
Reply quickly, Stephen House, in terms of Morata not being that bad.
He's a £60 million centre forward that's not scored in 32 of the games that he's played this season.
There we have it on that bombshell. And you reply, Dave.
The maths behind that stat then was absolutely rubbish. He's played 45 games and scored 15 goals, so it's actually 30 games he's not scored in. It's just Stephen Olsen floating stats. Yeah, whatever, hat-trick, smat-trick. But what I'm saying about Morata is he's done okay at Chelsea. He's improved the Chelsea team when he's been in that side, whereas Renato Sanchez hasn't done that at all for Swansea, a team that is absolutely rubbish. A midfield of Joe Allen and Leon Britton used to be better than, of course, Renato Sanchez.
Steve, you can jump in. Steve, I'm going to let you jump in.
Big. That is flop-tastic.
Steve jump in. Because I feel like Dave's just cracking jokes now. Let's go.
Chelsea team. A Chelsea team that was champions last season when he wasn't there, he's come in. He's the only major difference that they've had from last season to this season. And they are fifth, looking at they're outside the top four. How has he improved them, David?
Big. You forget about a player called Nemanja Matic that used to play midfield next to N'Golo Kante and allowed him to play N'Golo Kante's best position, which is a box-to-box pressing role. No, I think Morata has come in to a team that was a bit of a mess. They signed Danny Drinkwater, for God's sake. Danny Drinkwater in central midfield, and they think they're going to win the Premier League. You combine that with Bakayoko, those two players there, they've caused Chelsea the problems, not Morata. When Morata's had the chances, he's put the ball into the back of the net with his head. He's been unbelievable with his head. And if they were playing a little bit more to his strengths, if they were crossing the ball more, if, for example, Victor Moses was fit all season, Morata's going to be scoring a lot more goals. But again, it's Chelsea that are the problem, not Morata. Whereas for Swansea, Morata Sanchez can't even help them. He can't do anything to get them into a better position, can he?
Well, today we're not arguing how poor Chelsea have been, but again, for your end arguments, guys, I'll give you 20 seconds to break down why your player has been the biggest flop of the season. Stephen Howson, as you're behind, you can go first.
£60 million centre forward that's come in and not even done as much as a guy who's not even considered a goal scoring centre forward did the previous season. He's took them from champions to fifth place. It's as simple as that. He hasn't scored anywhere near as many goals as he should have done. He hasn't scored anything like the sort of goals that his predecessor scored. This guy's a flop, and you can't say he's less of a flop than a guy that you're getting on loan that you've not even paid money for.
There we go. Strong argument, nothing but facts. But I can hear you laughing in the background, but now it's your turn to come back with your closing arguments.
They paid between £6 and £10 million for Renato Sanchez's loan move. But if you're looking at Morata, he averages 1 goal every 3 games in his career. He's doing that at Chelsea. So how can he be a flop? Whereas Renato Sanchez, no goals, no assists from central midfield is absolutely pathetic. Compare that to the great Paul Pogba. 10 assists this season and 6 goals. Renato Sanchez is nowhere near there. When people were putting them in the same bracket. Where he's come to where he is now, Renato Sanchez is the flop of the season and can't even get into a relegation-threatened side. He's absolutely let himself down.
Once again, you've heard the opening and closing arguments from our 2 debaters, but it's for you to decide, so click the button in the corner. Who has been the biggest flop of the season, Renato Sanchez or Morata? You're voting for Stephen Howson, you're voting for Statman Dave. Go check out their YouTube channel, because I know they've got lots of great content. Once again, guys, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.